Hello and welcome back everyone. In the previous video, we learned about how to create a Stripe session and redirect the user to the Stripe checkout page. And we also learned how we can create an order and set the order status to pending payment. And we also learned about how to register the Stripe Webhook endpoint using the webhooks, okay, which is this one. And in this video, we're gonna continue further, and then we'll take a demo of how this is all put together. Now, what we need to do is we need to test our functionality for our webhook once the order is placed. Now, currently, it's going to use this endpoint, which is the live endpoint, but we want to test it locally. So if you want to test locally, what we need to do is we need to use the Stripe CLI, okay? So the first thing you'll do is you'll create a Stripe Webhook endpoint secret. So you'll go to your env file, take an example from this env example, create Stripe Webhook endpoint secret, copy the endpoint secret, and I'll tell you the value of this in a moment. For the live site, the secret will be this one, right? Like when you create the webhook endpoint, you'll get a secret from here. But for local, it's going to be what you get with the Stripe CLI when you execute the Stripe CLI. So I'll show you in a moment. So first thing you need to do is you need to install this Stripe CLI. So brew install in case if you're on Mac. Otherwise, you can check on the Stripe website, what's the command to install it. So Stripe CLI, and then Stripe login. I think there's a space over here, I believe. So this is the documentation for that. So brew install Stripe. So what you need to do is you need to install the Stripe. In case if you're on Mac, you can use brew install. If you are on Windows, then this is the information how to do it. Linux, Docker, all of that information is given over here. Okay, so I have Mac, so I'm going to use that. So brew install Stripe CLI Stripe, and then you need to do Stripe login. Okay, so I have already installed that. So I'm just going to do a Stripe login. And then it's going to ask you that it wants to pair up with your Stripe application, which is your browser, in your browser. So you'll click enter. And then you can select, in case if you have more than one account, you can select that. But in my case, I just have one, so I'm going to use that. Verify that the pairing code below matches the one we have here. Okay, so allow access. Once you click on done, you can see that it's done, it's configured with the account ID, and it'll expire in 90 days. All right. So once you've done that, then you need to listen to it. So what you need to do is you need to say Stripe listen. So you need to listen to those webhook events. So Stripe listen. So what it's going to do is whenever it gets a request to this webhook endpoint that you've created, it's going to forward it to your local webhook event. So locally, what is it actually? So take a look. So my endpoint is HTTP. So I'll type that. HTTP localhost 3000 slash API Stripe Webhook, and I'm putting a trailing slash because in the next config I have set the trailing slash to true. If you haven't, then don't put the trailing slash over here. Okay, so you just say localhost 3000. In fact, I can get rid of this, and you can click on this listen to webhook events, and this also has more information that how to actually do that. You can actually get rid of this HTTP. We don't need that. As you can see, we don't need to do that. So Stripe listens, forwarding events to your server when developing an application. When developing an application, you likely want to forward received events to your server. Do so using the -- forward to flag when invoking the Stripe listen. All right, so localhost 3000, that's what we have. They have it on, in this example, they have it on 5000. We have it on 3000, so that's what we'll use. And then whatever your hook URL is. So in our case, it's /API /Stripe Webhook. So it's /API /Stripe Webhook. All right, that's what I'm putting. And then the trailing slash for my case. So I hit enter. So as you can see that now it's saying your webhook signing secret is this. So now we get the secret. So make sure you go to your environment variable and go ahead and update this value. I have already done that, so I don't have to do it. But now it's actually listening, right? So now if I go ahead and fill in this form and put any valid expiry date, any CVV, name, and then click on pay, and notice what happens here once we do that. So processing, you can see that payment intent succeeded, charge succeeded. So these are all the events that are being fired, right? And it's processing right now. You can see it's now successful. It's redirected to this page. Awesome. And session completed as well, right? So now if you go and check the order, earlier remember that it was pending payment. Now if you refresh it, congratulations. You can see that the status got changed to complete. And the reason why I did that is because under this webhook, we're basically listening for this event, which is checkout completed, right? So once we have this event fired, we basically call this update order, and this update order is going to call the WooCommerce REST API orders, put, which is update basically. So put, which means it's going to update the order data, and it's going to change the status to new status, which is basically what we pass from here, processing, right? That's why you see this as processing, which is awesome. Now, if you go back to the webhook and you look at payments, you can see that this one is succeeded. This is the one we just made, 2033. Look at the time, it's 2033 at the time when the payment was complete. If you look at the webhook, you can see that this was the session completed. Look at the time and date. So 28th of June, 8:35, 28th June, 8:34. This is the time it got completed. Look at all of the items. This is the event details, data, email of the customer, billing information, and payment status is paid, right? Success URL. So all of that information is here. Your order ID. Yep, remember that's the URL we passed, right? If you check. So remember that at the time when we created the session using the create checkout session function that's provided by Stripe, that's the URL we had passed. So that's the URL that's being available, and that's where the user is redirected. So if you go back and check, you can see that's the URL. We have the session ID over here, and then we also have the order ID, right? That is being passed. Okay, so now once it's redirected to the thank you page, on the thank you page, you can see that we're basically just calling this URL, which is API/get Stripe session. So we have created another endpoint called get Stripe session. All we are doing over here is we're saying stripe.checkout.sessions.retrieve. So this function is going to, so from Stripe, we call this function checkout.session.retrieve and pass the session ID, and it's going to give us the session information. So over here, we get the response. We use the XCOs to call this, and we get the response. And under the session data, we get all of the information. Basically, we get the order ID, the email, and all of that stuff. So that's what we've put over here. So order number, order email, and all of that stuff. Okay. And then if he wants to shop more, he can click on this button and go back to shopping again, right? Awesome. So I hope you did like the video. If you did, please give a thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. And do start my repository to support my work like all the beautiful 443 people have. My repository name is WooNext. And then also follow me on GitHub. My GitHub handle is imranhsayed, which is this one. And do follow me on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is Codeytek. So I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.